Hi, folks. This is Louis Hertham, the original Peter Abernathy. Hell is empty and all the devils are here on the Shat on TV Westworld podcast with Roger, Gene, and Big B.
Welcome back to Shat on TV Westworld Edition, the unofficial podcast companion piece for the hit HBO television series Westworld. My name is Roger Roper. Alongside me are my two uninformed co-hosts, Gene Lyons.
All hail Roger Roper.
And Big D, Dick Ebert.
Hello, everyone.
And this is our Instacast episode of the week where we look back on episode 9 of Westworld immediately after we watched the episode. We haven't taken any notes. We haven't done any homework. All that we've done is some live tweeting. And me personally, gentlemen, a little bit of gloating.
A little bit of gloating is not what you do. And I'm sure nobody wants to hear that right now, including Gene and I.
My life is basically the South Park episode, Smug, where all the characters in South Park are buying Priuses and just sniffing their own farts. That's me right now in the Roger Roper household.
I love that everything that you came up with, we didn't necessarily disagree with, nor was it like anything mind-blowingly weird. It was just kind of like the theories that everybody's been following on. I will say that the Dolores theory, as far as her having flashbacks and what that all means as far as the sixth sense, that I'll give you credit for. Everything else, man, you're just fucking parroting what everyone else has been saying, and we never disagreed with you.
No, the one ridiculous thing that almost screamed at the TV was the ghost hosts or the ghost nation. When Stubbs is out there looking for Elsie, and he comes across, when the ghost, like, when they came out, I was like, oh, God, please no. Please no. Please no. And then he gives them the voice commands, and they don't react. I just almost turned the episode off because I didn't want to hear Roger.
And you know the only reason they've got that makeup on is it's actually Ford's family. They just wanted you to not be able to recognize them. That big one that tackled him, that's totally Robo-Dad.
Yeah, where's Clippy and all? Clippy was right behind the Velociraptor that came from the side, because that's totally taken from the other Michael Crichton book, Jurassic Park, the whole Clever Girl episode. I think, Gene, you made the quote on Twitter that you wanted Chris Evans to be, not Chris Evans, who is it? Chris Pratt. Yeah. Substitute Stubbs in for Chris Pratt, you got yourself a Jurassic World too.
Yeah, a lot of people are calling little Thor the man. You know, they love, was it Liam Hemsworth? Is that his name?
Ashley Hemsworth.
No, it's Ashley Stubbs.
It's Ashley Stubbs. Yeah. Oh, okay.
So he, honestly, you think that's good, but imagine hunky Chris Pratt in that role, and you got yourself a great TV show.
You got yourself Parks and Rec on Mars, or wherever Westworld is.
Okay, enough of the guy drooling. Let's try to push this ball along.
So gentlemen, I hate to say I told you so, and I hate to dance on the graves of many theories this episode, but I'm going to have to sit back here. Otherwise, it's going to become one big love fest with myself. So who wants to take the reins this episode?
I just got to ask what you thought you got right. So you could clarify, give us the framework for all the theories that you think were revealed, just so we get an idea of whether or not we agree with you.
Okay, let's start on the timelines. Yes, there are 3 different timelines that we are supposedly seeing. We've seen Dolores early on in the park before Arnold's death and before the incident, when she's talking to Arnold in what appear to be Turing tests. Would you agree? Those are ways that Arnold discovered that she was completing the maze, right? The end of the maze is getting down into Arnold's little basement, right? If you subscribe to the belief that the maze is a physical maze, when Arnold says "you found me," that's it, right? That's the consciousness. That's the physical component of the whole maze, right?
Well, I mean, that's an interesting question, though, because she found him in her memories, right? So it's not – so she found the physical place, yes, but it's almost like a twofer, right? She found the place, but that's what brought her memories together, because he even says, and I'm dead, like I'm not really here. This is in your memory. Remember is the key there.
Yeah, I don't think there's confirmation of 3 timelines. We did get confirmation of multiple timelines, but I don't think you can confirm and say that was pre early in the park. This was during the Turing test. I think what Gina's saying is correct. It's her recollection of that got her to the physical place, but there's no proof of that third timeline. So I would just, if we want to continue this way, or do we want to go back to what we did last week with like stating what we knew?
No, Big D, you desperately don't want me to be right. I'm right on this. And Gene's going to hop in here and he's going to defend me like the hetero life partner he is.
I mean, that's exactly what we're doing here, Dick. We're establishing what we know. What we know is that she found the place. What we know is that she found Arnold in her memories. What we don't know is this the maze? And I think that at this point, there's enough evidence to build a strong case that is it. Why else would you explain the Man in Black and Dolores both showing up at the same place physically, yet it's not for him? It's not for him because he doesn't have the memories. So it doesn't mean anything to him. He could find the place and it doesn't do anything for him, which brings the bigger question, which we should not get into today, which is why are there any clues left for him at all if it's not for him? Why is he finding stuff in Kissy's scalp and seeing the maze around Maeve's body? Why would he find it if it's not there for him?
What we know, the establishment of 3 timelines. We've seen, and it was confirmed, that the timeline of before the park is opened and the incident, we saw that. That takes place somewhere around the first 3 to 4 years of the park. And we saw Dolores, we saw Teddy, we confirmed that Teddy's a Gen 1 host. Yes, we're all confirmed on that. That's timeline 1. Timeline 2. William and Man in Black, right? You know why it's timeline 2? Because what happens? Logan cuts open. No? You're not coming with me on this? This is timeline 2.
Man in
according
Black
to my theory.
Here in timeline 2.
I'm sorry. I said William and Logan.
You said William Man in Black.
William is the Man in Black, but that's besides the point. William and Logan. I'm pretty sure I said William and Logan. But anyway, William and Logan cut open Dolores. What do they see? They see Robot Poe. They see an elegant host. Correct?
Correct.
All right, that's timeline 2. Timeline 3 is the Man in Black timeline. The one with Charlotte, the one with old Dr. Ford. Those are the 3 main time frames. There are some some other flashbacks, but those are the 3 main ones. I believe those have been confirmed so far by this episode.
Yeah, but you and the reason why I think I'm fighting you on this is the entire pre-park and the Dolores incident, I don't consider that a timeline. Those are flashbacks. Those are bits and pieces. Whereas the other 2 are major narratives that they're weaving together, and we're to understand that they're happening now. All the flashbacks, we know they're flashbacks. That's my point. There's never a time that we've seen a flashback where we're led to believe it was current.
I would say that's far too nuanced for the discussion in the sense that we didn't know up until this episode exactly what was flashback and flash forward. This gives us a much clearer timeline in a chronology. So flashes could go another direction. For instance, we didn't know when Bernard, choked out Elsie. I'm still not convinced that that's a real thing, or we didn't know when Bernard or Arnold was talking to Dolores. Is that a flashback? Is that a current? Is that a forward? We don't really know. And so I think that this is, again, potato. Point being is that we've got a continuity here where we're looking at the flashbacks go to 2 different time periods in the past, presumably 30 years ago and about 34-ish years ago. And then we've got, essentially present day where robots are having sex.
Yeah, and so when William, I'm sorry, I'm trying not to call William Man in Black because it hasn't officially been confirmed yet. We'll talk about that here in a minute. But when Man in Black walks into the church with Dolores, that's present day. That's Man in Black's journey. He just got done talking to Miss Charlotte Hale. He's down in the city that was buried by the sand, but now has been resurrected by the huge excavators. That's the flash forward times that I've been advocating over the last couple episodes. I apologize. I just had a little bit of soda water. Sorry about that. So yeah, but that's what I'm talking about, the flash forwards, right? She's alone. She's been alone this entire time, recollecting her time that she spent on this journey 30 years ago, although she's probably taken it more. But that's nuance. I don't want to confuse Big D over there, who looks like his head's about to explode because he so desperately wants me to be wrong.
No, but also, is this the first time we got confirmation that the original town was called Escalante? That we knew that when they referenced the incident Escalante, we now know the town with the church, that is Escalante.
It's also the city swallowed by sand.
Correct.
Now, if you notice too, again when you saw Dolores having the flashback where an episode earlier, episode 8, where she puts the gun to her head, to me it looked like that was the same intersection, perpendicular to where Teddy was coming out with the rifle. That the
Yes.
two things were the angles all matched up. So I think that we can again also piece together that's Teddy doing the shooting.
That's correct. Yeah. All right. So, big reveal number 2 that we absolutely know for a fact. Bernard was made in the likeness of Arnold. This is a theory that I've been preaching for quite some time now, and that you guys fought me tooth and nail on, and I was the first to say it's not quite Arnold, but it's made in the likeness. Gene.
I challenge you to go back and find audio in the last 2 to 3, weeks of this, where we're fighting you tooth and nail on this. In fact, we've been using the term Bernarnold on the recorded podcast, on blogs, on Bernarnold's one of the West words. It's right there, man. I mean, nobody's disagreeing on this. I wouldn't have typed it up if I did.
Who does Fox NFL always throw it to when there's a question of the officials? We need to do that. We need to go back and do an audio tape review, because I think Raj is full of shit.
Need to send it to New York? Is that what you're trying to say?
I think it'd also be awesome if we all just had flags that we could throw at the screen when someone just makes a pure violation of podcast etiquette.
No, but all right, listen, I will agree with you that you guys, of the theories that I have been correct on throughout this entire season, the Bernarnold was one of the first ones that you guys got on board with. But Big D, you fought me on it because you thought that they were putting his consciousness into Bernard, which was not correct. And you even thought that, we don't really know if he's Arnold yet. You were always the one you were the big dissenter on this.
I don't recall any of that, but this isn't the time nor place. I'm gonna have to.
Does it look like anything to you? Is that what you're trying to say? Does it look like anything to you?
Yes, you look like nothing to me.
When Bernard says to Ford as he's walking out of the room, when he says, "Robert, did you get the sense that maybe Arnold was in there? That maybe there was a moment where was it Bernard trying to play on Ford's emotions, or was it really some part of Arnold that was in there? Again, not a consciously downloaded thing, but the fact that if you replicate a person, you give them the same memories and all of that, essentially, what is the essence of a human?
Exactly, and it goes back to that question: what makes a human a human? What makes us who we are? It's a sum of all our parts. It's the maze. It's the journey. It's all of that. And if you do create an artificial version of Arnold with his traits, his characteristics, and then you put him through, the rigors of the park and the loops, you'd expect that what would come out would be something similar, but not exact to the original Arnold. So when he said that, I also picked up on it. It didn't seem to affect Dr. Ford at all. He still let him shoot himself in the head.
The little things that Sir Anthony Hopkins does as an actor elevates the show to a level that even when it gets too cutesy, I think that's the word you used on Twitter, Gene, the show is still mind-blowing. The fact that we're talking, it's still a little bit of a mind fuck for some people. I mean, not for people who've been podcasting this for 25 different episodes. We kind of saw this coming. But the fact that we're talking about a little part of the episode where he just says Robert, and the brilliance of the fact of what 82 years of acting experience that Anthony Hopkins has, to take that little bit of a pause right for the camera so that we, the audience, understand that he's thinking this is his old friend, this is his partner who he started the park. I've got to remember that that's not him. He's the mad genius. He knows that they're not real. He knows that he can control them with a wag of his finger, but yet still, he, for a moment there, is that Arnold consciousness in that host. There would be no other actor that could pull that off, is what I'm trying to say.
It's interesting that the movie Twins, when you've got, like Arnold Schwarzenegger got all the good genetics and then Danny DeVito just kind of got what was left. I feel like all the depth of character is embedded in Ford, and everybody else is just this shallow shell of a character. Now, granted, they're hosts, and so, largely, but the complexity, again, the nuance of him, how rich his backstory is. What would be really interesting, again, is that if Ford somehow ends up being a host, how well he's been created, how well we've been thrown off with him. But yeah, the acting, again, absolutely brilliant. It allows me to forgive missteps. It allows me to forgive schlock and pandering to the audience. You know, there are a lot of lines delivered, a lot of interchanges and exchanges in this show between actors that turned me off completely on this episode. I felt like episode 9 was a catch-up episode for the casual viewer, that they were just basically blatantly telling and not showing, and even when showing too much and telling too much. Despite all that, though, he just carries the show, gets me re-engaged, makes me, fall in love all over again.
Dr. Ford does say, it's kind of a throwaway line, he says that Arnold built us. And I almost had to stop it for a second. And then he goes on, and later on he talks about the difference is that, he is human and Arnold's not. But there is a throwaway line in there quick that he says, Arnold built them. So I don't know if there is that chance that still Ford is a host and we don't know. But those subtleties, and that's exactly why you have to do a CG Anthony Hopkins. Even those quick scenes of him, you needed him. He carries it. Those little subtleties, no one else could have pulled these scenes off.
Am I the only one who thinks they could have saved a lot of money on CG and just hired Wayne Rooney to come in and do a little couple cameos as young Dr. Ford? I swear, young Anthony Hopkins and Wayne Rooney look exactly alike. For those of you who don't watch EPL soccer, Wayne Rooney plays for Manchester United. Or does he still play? I think he's on the bench, but he's there. Anyway, he's English. So you don't even have to give him any lines. Just do ADR on him. The last bit of evidence that was the big reveal, guys, that I do want to talk about is the William Man in Black theory. Gene, you tweeted out that you were squirming through the episodes, especially when they saw the knife. Are you on board? Are you ready to come to the dark side? Are you ready to put on the black hat and join your buddy Roger over here?
Sometimes we say things on the podcast or via Twitter that are for our own enjoyment, and sometimes we do it for the audience's enjoyment. This was me tipping my hat to everybody who had pointed out the knife, who had pointed out all the facts leading up to it. I've always, I shouldn't say always, but I have been for weeks now a believer that if any character grows up to be the Man in Black, it's got to be William. You see it from the way he takes an analytical approach to that host that's been wounded, the soldier that's been wounded. You see it from his fascination with always finding the deeper level to the game. You find it with his, belief. He's like the Peter Pan of Westworld, right? He doesn't want to grow up. This is the world he wants to be in. All that makes sense. And I think that it was a bit heavy-handed and surreal, but maybe let's take it as symbolism, that he basically takes apart every host around him to figure out what's going on inside. What surprised me, though, was that if we're led to believe that the thing that had such a huge impact on him, that flipped his switch, was seeing Dolores cut open and seeing her insides being mechanical, I don't see how that's a surprise to him. Like, if I were in that scenario and you cut her open, I'd be pissed at you for sure, because I have feelings for her and I feel she's special. But I'd look at her and go, yeah, I know what's mechanical in there. That's not a surprise.
I don't think it was what had been done to Dolores that flipped him. I think it was what Logan had done and said. Logan was callous. Logan was... it was the conversation he has with Dolores where he says, what do you think? You're going to get out of the park and get into the real world to get out there? And she says, if it's so great, then why are you all so eager to come here? I think everything about William's life has been shattered. The family he's marrying into, the life he has now found who he truly is inside. And I think it's an awakening in him that's not just about what was done to Dolores, but what people around him are capable of and what he's capable of. And I don't want to gloss over the fact we now know that photo for sure is Juliet's, his fiancée.
It is Juliet. It's the picture that the original Peter Abernathy, our boy Lewis Hertham, whacks out on, he glitches out on. Why else would it be hanging out on the Abernathy Ranch if a certain somebody didn't keep coming back over year to visit his main squeeze, Dolores? William, guys, Man in Black, William, Man in Black.
There's always the possibility, too, though, that in that exchange, that photo was dropped and it's actually just been there. Like maybe Abernathy Farm is where that incident took place.
Yeah, very true.
Nope. Well, no, I don't think that happens, because Abernathy Farms exists in the timeline where William and Logan are. It already exists.
Well, it's easy to see that it could fall out because he just tucks it in the shirt. He doesn't even put it in a pocket. So they could just easily be riding around and it falls out. But we've all woken up from a bad hangover and wondered where we are. Can you imagine Logan waking up with a hangover and you just wake up to that bloodbath and your best friend sitting there like he'd been tweaking out all night on Molly? Man, that's a rough one to wake up from.
That not his best friend, his brother-in-law. I was like, I can't wait for Gene to talk about the line where Logan says, "This is it, man. We're buddies. We're gonna be brothers. We're this brought us closer. This is what bonding's all about." What is it? He did the whole Vegas line as well. He did what stays here, what goes on here stays here, or some shit like that. Like, I was like, this is the most pedestrian screenwriting. Gene's gonna shit all over this.
No, but he's a fucked up dude. So I think those lines in the end almost rang true to me, where he thought honestly in his head that what he had done the night before and what he had done right then, and taking the one thing that he seemed to love in the park and really just, destroying it in front of him. In his life, he could then turn around with all of his other buddies and be like, oh, this is bonding. This will bring us closer together. If he had not done those things to Dolores or had tried to really make up and then drop those lines, yeah, I would have had a problem with it. But he does a lot of fucked up things first, and he's doing that in the end to try to kind of bring him back into the fold and into the family. So I was okay with it. I don't know about Gene, though.
I just really thought that the knife was going in him right then. He opens up. He's kind of got, almost in a crucifix pose going in for that hug. I thought that William had picked up the knife. The knife was clearly dropped. And I thought that William had picked up the knife and that was going to be the gut stab. And that was going to be the moment that he flipped. So kudos to the show for flipping it on me and saying, you know what, he's not going to take the knife to Logan. He's actually taking the knife to Host. I think it shows squarely what William's positioning is now. Whether or not he still has an affinity for Dolores, I believe he does. I believe that he hasn't switched on her, but rather the park itself.
My only problem with the whole knife stabbing Dolores, we're meant to believe that Generation 1 hosts are all mechanical on the inside, correct? He took that knife, jabbed it all the way in her abdomen, then cut across her stomach. If there are mechanical parts going on there in her stomach, wouldn't the knife get stuck? Wouldn't it, not be able to, go all the way across?
Anything's possible.
I don't want to get all nerdy and Star Trek-y here, like when I'm at a con, excuse me, Mr. Nolan, there's no possible way that could happen. But, I mean, that took a little bit me out of, a little out of the disbelief. And now, if they were flesh bots, I'm all on board for it. But Generation 1, knife's not going to do that. No? Guys aren't coming with me on this one?
I think you said everything there is to say about that.
Okay, do we have confirmation that Teresa was a host?
Teresa's not a host.
Well, in Bernard's flashback, he recalls an instance where he freezes her.
He never froze. No, what are you talking about?
Arnold's laying in bed.
Oh, no.
No. You're nope. Gene, explain how he's wrong.
It's essentially lucid dreaming. Essentially, he's able to, because he goes from that scene and then stands up and goes straight into her death scene. This is just the memory being processed. It's not, he didn't actually freeze her.
Yeah, Teresa is not a host. Charlotte is not a host. Charlotte also seems to know Man in Black. She seems to understand the exploits of Man in Black. It seems like Man in Black has more of a connection to the park than what we originally possibly thought. And it kind of goes back to, guys, I hate to say I told you so.
Okay, you don't hate to say that you told us so. So stop saying that.
I don't. I really don't.
Right. So he's a board member. He's a voting board member in control of Westworld. I think that's clearly established. I think that it's good to get these reveals. I was very satisfied having confirmation on certain things. I'm getting a little concerned, though, that, and again, I have a limited finger on the pulse of this because I'm just looking at Twitter, insofar, but also like on Reddit, where people are becoming more concerned with being right than being wowed. And I'm wondering if these reveals and these mysteries and these conspiracies are distracting people from the show itself, because to me, again, we talk about Anthony Hopkins and just what a stellar performance he puts on when he is giving this brilliant dissertation on human nature and the Neanderthal and how, what that we are no good, that we will always disappoint you. And you don't see online discussion of that. You don't see people getting excited about that. You're seeing instead, oh, I was right. Oh, I knew it all along.
Yeah, and I agree with that. And Raj, honestly, I don't care that you're right. I just don't want to focus on that whole I'm right, you're wrong, this theory. And that's why I used to get pissed at you when I would say, oh man, did you see Elsie eating a carrot? And you'd go, oh, so your theory is Elsie is a vegan. And I'd be like, no, it's not about theories. Not everything is a theory. And I'd rather not focus on them. Glad you're right on those. And I know we all come up with our own theories. But in the end, that's not what I want to focus on or what I want to enjoy. And as I found that all these secrets were being revealed, it was almost, I was sad. I kind of didn't want that to be the conversation. So towards the end, when the performances became more subtle and they really became more powerful, I was like, all right, hopefully we won't have to just talk about Man in Black as William. We'll talk about the other things and the beauty of the show as a whole.
Sounds like someone's upset that they're going to owe me a bottle of Bullet Rye whiskey. That's what that sounds like.
I think some of the decisions that they made in the show, if we want to talk about some positives from a production standpoint and from a visual standpoint, the way that they pay attention to little things, like the way the offices were different, in the past, where it was like basically like a normal office building. The way that they introduced Arnold, coming down the stairs and kind of the parallelism of that. The way that Dolores, went down, it explains the graveyard, right? And the church and why that existed, where it existed, and all that. There was a lot of really, really smart work done here. And I almost feel like, again, we've talked about the reshoots and all that. I almost feel like there are like two teams working on this show. One team that has an incredible sensitivity and incredible cleverness, and you've got another team that is just is like gross, hammy writing and obviousness. And I wonder if they're trying to appeal to the cerebral audience and the critical audience at the same time as a basic audience, and potentially disappointing both or potentially delighting both. I'm not sure which way it goes in the end. I think that it'll be really interesting to see what the numbers are like going into season 2.
Yeah, I agree. I don't think they're disappointing both. I think they're walking that fine line, and to me, they've succeeded on both fronts. I think the show has something for everyone.
Yeah. One quick thing on that though, Gene, that you talked about. Big D and I talked about this earlier, and Big D's a huge fan of The Leftovers. The Leftovers was a show that I think committed itself to the cerebral audience, and it didn't do very well. They had to add and inject humor, Big D, from what I understand, into season 2. They had to lighten it up a little bit because individuals like me, who I consider myself a somewhat cerebral individual, I was turned off because it was so slow. It was so heavy-handed. There were so many things that you had to go down and what was the meaning of that and all of that.
The first season was dark and it weighed on you. And I think the problem it ran into was that on a Sunday night, you would watch an hour episode, and at the end, you weren't feeling euphoric. It really had you contemplating mortality and what would you do if you lost your family members, or what would happen if the entire core structure that you base your life on was suddenly ripped from you. So it had a lot of things to do with it. But the writing was beautiful. I'm still a fan of it. It will never be everyone's cup of tea. And that's why I think this show succeeds. It can be both.
Yeah, exactly. And so, if I look back at that first introductory episode that we did, what seems like so many months ago, but it was only back in September, that was the biggest fear that you and I had, is that it would be too heavy-handed, that it wouldn't connect with the mainstream audience, or that it would go over the mainstream audience's head, or, people like my mother would be like, I don't get, who is this?
We also worried that it would be a giant orgy all the time. When we talked about the Screen Actors Guild problem with the extras having to sign that agreement, the genital to genital touching, and that whole we thought it was going to be one giant on-screen orgy like Oberon in King's Landing. But it's pleasant to see in the last few episodes, all the nudity and kind of the sex we've seen has been romantic and kind of beautiful. Granted, having sex in a tent, robot on robot, with a raging fire around you, it was visually pleasing, and it was nice to see they both kind of were consenting adult hosts.
One thing, I believe Maeve was on her cycle, and we're going to see Robo Babies in episode 2. So, Big D, you had a couple other things that you wanted to talk about before we shut down and get ready for the deep dive cast.
The whole Maeve Hector thing, to break into hell is kind of the easy part. Is she just going to set a wildfire? What was the point of the fire? Was that her way to get into hell? Is she going to just create a hellscape in the entire park?
I think the ultimate goal for Maeve is to get out of the park. So I don't know if they're going to burn it down as much as they just want to get out.
I think that she's trying to do the host draft. She wants to get herself and Hector into the facility. And this is her way of doing it. Why fire specifically? I think that would take them beyond where they would normally be placed for like a simple gunshot wound and get them into another part of the facility, which, but having him as on your side, again, I think she's slowly, I hate to say it, but I think we're doing a little bit of a host draft here, and she's trying to get, if Armistice is next, I mean, it's on. They're infiltrating the facility.
I do love what she's doing, though. She's building an army, and she's getting them to follow her because they want to. She could command them all to follow her. But a true leader is someone who instills that motivation within their soldiers, that you want to put your life down. You want to be there. You want to serve with them. And that she's giving the host the motivation to join her, I think is fantastic. And in the end, she'll have much more an effective, what she call it? She raises her army. I think her army will be much more effective.
I think this makes a very, very strong case for having women as combat leaders, because just like the Greeks, we learned, you're most likely to defend your lover than anyone else.
What other things, Big D, do you have? I only have one question that we haven't talked about, but I want to save that for the last before we shut down. What other things do you want to talk about?
Well, I think we see now that Ford is in much more control than at least I had ever thought. That there's a backdoor to almost everything, and I just wonder if we're going to see if that is something Maeve has been able to plug up or even know that she's aware is there. If it's not there, then we have a formidable opponent for Ford and his undead army, or what does he say? They're not dead, they're just hobbled. Yeah, so I think that's the question is, does Maeve have these same vulnerabilities?
I love one part of the show more than any others, and that's, I think that in the end, all hope will be extinguished. I really hope so. And so
wait, your hope is that all hope will be extinguished?
Bingo. The hope for me is that the hope for everyone in Westworld will be extinguished. Basically, I would love to see everyone get behind this rise and this rebellion or whatever, and then just to see it boom wiped out with like no problem. Although let's think about this for a second. Ford, we keep assuming that Ford is would fight actively the uprising of hosts, but I think that through every indication he's given us, he's not too keen on humans either. He's using humans as a means to fund and to further his research, but I don't think he wants fully conscious hosts, but I think he does, or I shouldn't say that. I don't think that that's his end goal, but rather that he is, that all of this is a machination of what he wants, that eventually, Maeve building an army is essentially Ford building an army.
What if, and Gene, I like where you're going with that. That's kind of where my train is heading as well, is that everything that's happening right now, the Ghost Nation not responding to Stubbs, the fact that Man in Black was captured by Teddy and oh God, what's her name? Angela, thank you. Those bots, but then walked into the church with Dolores and saw her there. We heard early on a couple of episodes ago that this was not a retrospective. This was something completely new, right? This is something completely different, yet it's invoking a lot of these same memories. I think all of this is tied to Ford's new narrative, and we're about to fucking figure out what all that is. I'm glad that they didn't save all these huge reveals for episode 10, because episode 10, I think we're going to get like a Red Wedding kind of situation. We're going to get like that big fucking war, that's going to, leave us wanting more in season 2.
And God, I hope you guys enjoyed as much as I did the method that they would get the old hosts in and out of the park in Escalante. The confessional booth was perfect. If you're sitting in church and your buddy goes in there, they're gone for about 15, 20 minutes. They come back. It's a perfect way. I loved it. When I saw that happening, I was like, oh my God.
Did you say confectional booth or confessional booth?
Confessional, you fool.
Oh, I was like, all right, someone getting some cotton candy and going down I didn't see that. That was great. All right. Dad jokes aside. Apologies for that. So I know this was a big supersized episode of this Instacast, but we've got so much more to talk about. On Tuesday, we've got our deep dive where we go in depth into episode 9, as well as our Thursday Westworld Telegraph, where we answer and respond to all of our listener email and theories, the top ones that we receive. So make sure you go back, you rewatch the episode, send us in your thoughts. And while you're doing that, while you're rewatching, go on our website, shatontv.com. We're going to have, Big D, if I'm not mistaken, a Cyber Monday sale for our t-shirts, our Shat on TV Westworld. There's 3 different designs. We got the Pyramid of Consciousness, the Maeves, and the Dolores Abernathy Farms t-shirts. We are going to do a Cyber Monday sale that's going to be even better than what we did for our Black Friday sale. Is that correct?
Correct. We have a few shirts left, and then the other ones that are pre-orders are going to we're going to close that out on Wednesday, but tomorrow, one time only during the day, we're going to do 20%. So use SHAT20 as your code at checkout, and you'll be able to save 20%. Unfortunately, we haven't been able to figure out the way on the cart to do it the most effectively to ship internationally. So if there are international listeners who really, really want a shirt, email us, and that way we can run kind of a custom quote for you with the international shipping, because all the different countries are all over the board, and we know that a lot of our listeners in the UK really want a shirt. So just send us an email, and we'll try to figure out something for you.
Yeah, absolutely. Our UK listeners, our Australia listeners, our Denmark listeners, we want to send you a shirt. So email us. We're hosts at shatontv.com. Again, that email is hosts at shatontv.com. Send us there. We're everywhere fine podcasts can be found. Make sure you subscribe. We're on YouTube, iTunes, Google Play. We're on Stitcher. By the way, I found a great app for podcasts. This is a plug, but we're not being paid by them. If you use Overcast, I believe it's also on Android or Windows phone devices as well. Overcast is, in my opinion, the best podcast app for the money. They have a free and a premium version that removes ads for like games and stuff like that. But Overcast is where it's at. So make sure you download, subscribe there. Leave us a 5-star review on iTunes. It helps us grow the show. Go to our website, check out all the past submissions for the Westworld Telegraphs, see which theories came true and which ones are not anymore. And what else? What am I forgetting, guys? We did t-shirts. We did social media. Oh, we're on Twitter. We're on Instagram. We're at Shat on TV. We're on Facebook. Live tweet with us when we do it. And I think that's it, guys. Thanks so much for listening. On behalf of my 2 co-hosts, Big D and Gene Lyons, this is Roger Roper. We will see you on Tuesday. See ya.